to our members. And so we're happy today to have Lee County Commission Chairman Brian Hamman on today. And Brian's going to give us an update on COVID-19 and what's going on in the county. And then what we'll do is we'll let Brian talk, and then as you wrap it up, we'll open it up for chat. Or as we go along, if you have a question, just type it into the chat box, and then we'll have Brian answer those questions as we go along. So, Commissioner, thank you for joining us. And I know you've been busy and doing a great job of keeping us all updated on Facebook and other areas. And I know you're real busy, but we do appreciate it. And I'm going to turn it over to you and let you go over what you want to talk to us about.
Hey, thank you, Philip. And thank you to everybody who joined around this lunchtime today. Some good news to start off today with was the results that we received on Monday, May 11th, were some of the best testing results we've seen throughout this entire pandemic in Lee County. Out of 467 test results that we received that day, only 9 of them came back positive. So less than 2% of that day's tests came back positive. So that was a really good day. In fact, looking at the last 7 days, we've had a couple days where it was around 3.5% and 3.1%. Overall, all time, when you look at the 16,000 tests that have been done in Lee County, only 1,300 of those have come back positive. So that gives us an 8.3% positivity rate. So 8.3% of all the tests done have come back positive, and I guess it means nearly 92% of those tests have come back negative. This is a number that we're going to continue to watch as things open up. We want to make sure that, as things open up and we continue to do more testing, watching that rate of positivity is going to be really important. If the rate of positivity goes up, then obviously we know we've got a trend that we've got to watch. And if it goes down, then we know things are continuing to head in the right direction. One thing that you all might be interested in is zoning is back. So we had our first zoning hearing last week on a Wednesday. It was our first socially distanced zoning hearing, and it went really well. We are working with the hearing examiner to get her hearing examiner hearings up and running again. I understand some of those have been scheduled. She is working on procedures to make sure that, again, that's a safe environment as people come and participate in those hearings. And then finally, yesterday, the Board of County Commissioners met to discuss what to do with some of the CARES Act money that we've received. So the federal government has obviously been putting money everywhere to try and respond to COVID-19. Through one of their packages, they actually were able to send direct payments to counties or cities that have more than 500,000 people in population, and Lee County is one of those. Our share of that money was about $134.5 million, so $135 million if you round it up. This money is meant to last through the rest of the year. If we haven't used all of it by December 30th, we're supposed to send it back to the federal government. This money is meant specifically for COVID-19 expenses and response. So you cannot use it to cover anything that was already in your budget. You cannot use it to replace the lost revenue that your government is facing because things have been shut down. You can only use it to respond to COVID-19. So things like, salaries for overtime for your paramedics and your first responders who have had to go and enforce some of the COVID-19 activities. Some of the things we could do with it was business assistance and individual assistance. And that's really what the board focused in on at our meeting yesterday. So because this money is going to be audited, and because there's a potential that what we spend incorrectly, we could be asked to pay back, we decided to look at 50 million of it. And with that $50 million, which is a little more than a third of the money, we're going to create a few programs. We gave our staff the go-ahead to create a rent, mortgage, and utility assistance program, and to use $20 million to help out with rent, mortgage, and utilities assistance for individuals. Now, this will not be where you will sign up and get a check. These payments would be made directly to those vendors. This is a program that follows an already existing program that we have in Lee County. In Lee County for years, we've actually had a program that's been paid for through federal dollars to give people who are struggling mortgage assistance or rent assistance. Of course, they've got to meet certain income levels and certain criteria. I think on this one, it's a family of 4 has to be making less than $55,000 a year as an annual household income in order to be eligible to receive any of this help. On the business side of the equation, we came up with a business relaunch program. This would be a maximum of $5,000 that would go to a business that has fewer than 25 employees and has had their operations either closed or severely curtailed by the governor's executive order. So with $5,000, obviously that's not enough money to make a business viable if the business is not viable. But it is enough money to help a business kind of get that head start to relaunch. Think about businesses that might have to do extra disinfecting, might have to buy extra, sanitizer, extra personal protective equipment, may even have to get their employees' insurance premiums paid and things like that again. That's kind of what we were thinking with that. We also wanted to help out with childcare. So school is still, out, they're canceled. So we wanted to help people with childcare. So the United Way has a voucher program that actually covers childcare. Our proposal was to put $3.5 million towards that United Way voucher program. And we'll have more specifics on how that's going to work once we launch the program on our website. And then finally, we wanted to put $1.5 million towards personal protective equipment. Our goal was to try and have some personal protective equipment like the masks, the gloves, things like that available for businesses who need that in order to protect their employees and their customers. We realized that some really small companies don't have the buying power that the county has. And so we want to use our buying power to be a matchmaker to get the right equipment in the right hands of the smaller companies. And again, this is all geared towards smaller businesses because these were the businesses that seem to have a hard time competing and getting a hold of some of the other federal dollars that have been distributed, throughout this pandemic. So these programs have not launched yet. In fact, we don't even have all the specifics on them yet. We're at our next Tuesday 9:30 board meeting. We're going to get more specifics on how these programs will launch and what they'll look like. Because this is something brand new for Lee County, it's going to take us time to get the infrastructure set up to take in the applications, to evaluate the applications, and then to get this money distributed. This is not something that we'll be able to do in days, but it is something that we hope to do in weeks because we know that people need the money now. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions, Philip. I don't see the chat box, but I know you do, and I'll answer whatever questions you want to throw at me.
Okay, guys, anybody have any questions for the commissioner?
Philip, we have a question. It says, they would like to know what Lee County is planning for the Parks and Recreation Summer Camp this year.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have the specifics on that one yet. A lot of those details are being formulated. In fact, with things like that, we're kind of going along a couple different tracks because truthfully, we don't know what the future holds. We're following the governor's lead very closely to see what phase he puts us in and whether he allows us to continue to reopen things. And we're also kind of preparing a couple different contingencies. So the short answer is I don't know yet, but we'll make that information available as soon as we possibly can.
Brian, I had someone actually call me the other day, and I told him we were going to be on, and I figured I'd ask this as well. There's been these discussions about the liability of opening businesses, and I came to your business and got my hair cut. Now I have COVID-19, and I told him I didn't think the county had, or there was any way the county could protect the local businesses of the state. But I told him I'd at least throw it out there and see what your thoughts were on that. Any thoughts on that? Have y'all discussed that from the county's perspective, or do y'all not have a role in that at all?
Well, so it's probably not going to be something the county will address. It will probably be addressed by the state legislature in Florida. So, that is a concern that a lot of businesses have right now, including hospitals, right? So, they're getting ready to open their elective surgeries back up again. If a patient comes to the hospital and then several days later were to test positive for COVID, would they blame it on the hospital? And how would you prove that they didn't get it at the hospital and they got it at somewhere else? This question around all of that liability really is hanging out there right now. So it's something I expect the legislature will address. But that's about all the details I have right now. Just know that it is a topic that's on people's mind.
Thank you. I know this isn't the shy bunch. I mean, anybody have any questions?
I have a question, Philip.
Okay.
So we know in phase one we've gone through like the reopening of salons and restaurants and things. So what does phase 2 and 3 kind of look like?
Well, that is a good question. The White House came out with the guidelines for the phases, and Governor DeSantis, the day before he announced his reopening in Florida, he had a meeting in the Oval Office with the president and with Dr. Birx, and they went through kind of what Florida's reopening would look like. This is pure speculation on my part. I don't have any information that you guys wouldn't have seen already either on this, but my speculation would be that the governor would follow with what the CDC and the White House put forward as far as the reopening guidelines. So, we started on May 4th with that reopening phase 1. The White House had said you should go 14 days in between different phases. So, today's May 13th. I think May 18th might be 14 days. So I would expect and hope that the governor will make an announcement about more openings around that 14-day mark, if he's following what the White House came up with. I was on that task force that the governor created. The task force turned in a report that was a little more aggressive than what the governor ended up doing. We had recommended opening at 50% on the restaurants and opening haircutters and personal services earlier than what he did. But I think he's trying to stay along that very slow, deliberate, and safe path to get things reopened. So,
Anybody have any questions? Typically, my members aren't real shy. I don't know why we don't have any questions. They're usually not a shy bunch, but.
Well, that's okay. I'll share with you while they're typing and thinking of a question. One thing that I will share on behalf of the hospital is don't be afraid to go to the hospital if something's wrong with you. In talking with the leadership at Lee Health, they have found that people have really stopped coming to the hospital for things that they traditionally would be coming to the hospital for, including things like heart attacks, appendicitis, even people are trying to ride out broken hips at home. You need to go to the hospital. They are set up to keep you safe. If anything, if you need to come to the hospital, they will protect you. They'll do everything they can to keep you safe. But, a little personal testimony for y'all. I could have been one of those statistics. I had a appendectomy actually on the 1st of March. So appendicitis is not something you want to mess with. If your appendix bursts, you could get sepsis and die. Well, they're seeing right now that people are kind of riding out some of these emergency type ailments at home. And by the time they finally get transported to the hospital, they're in far worse shape than they need to be. And of course, that leads to a worse outcome for those patients. So, if you feel like you're having any of those traditional heart attack symptoms, stroke symptoms, or whatever, appendicitis symptoms, don't be afraid to go to the hospital. They are set up to keep you safe.
Right. Economically, tourism, this is a slow time of the year anyway, but are y'all looking at ramping up marketing, because as you open things back up, a lot of it's just, my restaurant's open, but I'm still scared to go in there, even though I've been to several restaurants. It seems safe. They're doing what the protocols. I mean, are y'all looking at ramping up marketing to get people to come down here and start vacationing, you know, and come back for season? Are y'all looking at that at all?
Well, we're not looking to encourage tourism right now, but we are planning for that time when it would be appropriate to encourage tourism. Yes. You know, right now is probably still not a good time to encourage a lot of tourists to come down here from other areas. But when they do begin to encourage tourism, the leadership in the state of Florida at Visit Florida would like to encourage interstate or intrastate tourism. So they want folks who can drive to, you know, other Florida residents who could drive to our market. So if it's Floridians coming and visiting other Floridians and supporting each other, they think that's a safer way and a softer way to restart tourism than kind of marketing to the rest of the world. So there will be a heavy plan once they get ready to start marketing for tourism to market, you know, between Florida markets to try and get visitors from other markets to come to Lee County and other Florida tourist destinations. And Lee County will follow right along with that as well.
Cool. We did have another question come in. One was asking if you could talk about the testing sites, which ones are open, and who can go get tested. I know before you had to have a doctor's excuse or a doctor's note, but I think that's changed. You talk about the testing sites.
Sure. The biggest testing site that anyone can go to is the CenturyLink Sports Complex. That site is open 7 days a week from 9 in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon. They have the ability to do 750 tests a day at that site. On many days, we have not seen them reach that 750 capacity because they haven't had that many people show up. So that is a good site that you could go and take advantage of if you'd like to get tested. And we've put on our website, leegov.com, all the information that you need to know. But you don't need a doctor's note for that site. You don't need a prescription. You don't even need to be showing symptoms. That site is run by the National Guard. They're set up for a high volume of people. And you could go and you could be tested at that CenturyLink Sports Complex site. And be prepared when you get there to wait. You know, sometimes if it's really full, up to 2 hours. But they will get you there and taken care of if that's something you'd like. And if your employees, by the way, if you wanted to get your employees tested, they could go to that site. It's a free test. Again, you don't need a doctor's note or prescription and get that there.
Well, I know there's limits to how many. This was actually my wife and I were talking about this. Speaking of the testing sites, is I know anybody can go whether you have symptoms or not, but I know there's a limited number of tests. I mean, should you go if you're feel fine and you're normal? I mean, are you taking away a test from somebody that is showing symptoms or has been around somebody that has symptoms? I mean, is there?
I don't think you would be, and here's why. So the National Guard site, like I said, can do up to 750 tests a day, and they have not reached that number except for one day where they actually had on May 7th 764 tests that they did.
That's probably one when I was trying to call.
Yeah, they've got capacity. There you go. They've got capacity there, but if you're sick, if you actually are feeling symptoms, you probably would go and call your doctor first, or you'd call Lee Health first. And Lee Health is going to direct you to one of their sites where they could take care of you, and you'd probably go through a much faster process. If you have symptoms, you're going to go right to your doctor, right to Lee Health, and get taken care of there. And the good news is on Lee Health, they have the ability to turn their tests around in the same day because they have an in-house lab. They're running those labs every day, and they're turning those results around very swiftly. So for them, where they're actually seeing people who do have symptoms, who are sick, they're able to get those tests done quickly and get the results back quickly so that so that they can get people the appropriate treatment.
Okay, we've had a couple of, I guess people don't want to use the chat box, so we're getting text messages. So
Okay.
Somebody asked, are there any projects fast-tracked, while there's less people out on the roads? I know in Orlando and some areas they're working on I-4. Is there any projects that the county's working on infrastructure-wise to fast-track during the slow period?
Yeah, you might know we do have a lot in the pipeline. We actually, the fastest way to get anything going was to just work with already approved projects that we were going to start anyways. And so my understanding is our Department of Transportation has been looking at what projects they were going to get started after Easter. Really, we limit the number of projects we do during tourist season because we don't want to cause even more trouble on the roads with traffic. But since season ended early this year, whatever projects they had planned and scheduled for after season, they've been able to get those underway and moving faster. But to plan any brand new projects would have been, impossible, just because you would have needed it to be shovel ready, and you probably would have needed the contractor on board already. But the good news is, our economy needs the government to continue building stuff right now, and we have not put any capital projects off. The only one capital project that we have delayed that would be noteworthy is at the airport. We were going to do a major expansion of our airport terminal. However, looking at the flight projections right now, we think our passenger counts at the airport are probably going to fall back to 2004 levels, which would be the levels that we had before we built the new midfield terminal that we're in. So we'll have some time to rework that expansion and make sure that it's ready when it's time to start building it. And hopefully we'll get the airport running again, because that really is our big economic engine.
Okay, we have some more questions that's come in. How is the county doing with cash reserves and the budget, considering, I know there's probably, I know permits have been down somewhat, we're seeing permits down, but how do you think overall the county may be doing through this thing economically or financially?
Well, we're really blessed in Lee County. We're financially very strong. In Lee County, we have just in our general fund alone over $100 million in reserves. We are seeing a little bit of a financial hit, but it hasn't been anything that we can't handle. On top of the $135 million that we got to respond to COVID-19 expenses, we also received money for our Lee-Trans system. We received money for the sheriff's office. We've received money for the airport. As a matter of fact, the airport's gotten over $30 million to help make up from some of the losses that it's seen. So financially, the county's in really good shape right now. We could handle, if God forbid, I'm praying we don't get a hurricane this year, but we could even handle that financially. It's part of what we've done, your Board of Commissioners has done over the last several years, to put the county in just a really good financial position so that we could handle emergencies like this.
Another question to the chat. Well, we're jumping around a little bit, but as these come in, one was asking about testing. Is there testing for the antibodies at the test site?
So there is no antibody testing at the test site. My understanding is Quest Diagnostics could do an antibody test. You could purchase it from them for $119 if it's something that you'd like for yourself. In the areas where they've done the antibody testing throughout the country, they've been part of a study that a university has put on. So like in California, it was Stanford that put on that study. In New York, I forget what university it was, but it was a university that did the New York study. And so here in Florida, they will do some antibody testing. In fact, there's been a small scale antibody test already in Florida that was basically for first responders. And it was over on the East Coast where they're the hardest hit. But right now, there's no immediate plans to have a study in Lee County. However, it's something that I'm constantly looking for an opportunity to get done here, because I think we'd all like to know what was the scope of the infection here.
This is jumping back, another one that came in. This is jumping back to the reserves. Somebody was asking, I know we have, reserves that have built up over the years with permits. The question is there any discussion about, I know we've had some discussions about reducing permit fees to lower the reserves. Has there been any recent discussions about lowering permits or, permit fees in order to help spur construction. You know, that we, you know.
I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh,
My phone, I got a phone call, and for some reason now I can't hear you. It like, let me do this. Come back. Can you hear me now?
yeah, I'll hear you fine.
I just can't hear you. Let me, I don't know what to do. Something screwed up on my phone though. All right, try talking again.
Yeah. Okay. Hello. Can
Oh,
you hear
now
me?
you sound good. Okay. All right, go ahead and repeat that question.
Well, this question came in, I guess it was spurred based on your discussion about the county cash flow reserves and things like that. The permit fees, there's a cash reserves and permit fees. And the question was, has there been any further discussion about reducing permit fees you know, to help, you know, spur construction or to help construction demand on the housing side?
We haven't had those conversations yet. Right now, we're just stuck in, disaster response mode. I think as we start to look at the full financial impact of this, we can have those discussions. Impact fees still reduced in Lee County. And honestly, I hope everybody will get building again. My family's an electrical subcontractor, so I have a little bit of insight into how the building business is going, and it seems like things are down, but not completely down. And I hear that some folks who have been our big builders are still seeing inventory move. So I'm praying that keeps going.
Yeah, we have, you know, and I just got the reports from Sean, and they were down a little bit, but nothing dramatic. I mean, I think as we get into May and June, we may see where they are. But the bigger builders, I have heard reports that they are moving product, and even some of my small custom guys are getting contracts and moving things. So I think it is positive that and thank goodness we were deemed essential and we were able to keep working, and that's definitely helped everything. And I want to say this while I'm on that topic is I want to thank you, just to let you know, the staff, Sean, the guys over in the permitting building department have really done a fantastic job of working with us to keep things flowing, get information out, and with social distancing for inspection. So just to let you know that they've done it. Dave Loveland and Sean and those guys have done a great job of working with us and keeping us up to date. It's really, really, when you hear some of the horror stories that are going on in some other parts of the state with staff not working with the industry and so forth, wanting to shut things down and fighting over what's essential or not. It's really, we are blessed in Lee County that we have good staff to work with us. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Well, thank you. And you guys have all been a blessing to us as well. I could not imagine having both our tourism industry and our construction industry impacted at the same time. So the fact that you all were essential is extremely important to us, because you've probably been able to preserve a lot of jobs that would have been lost otherwise. And you've been able to keep our economy going in some form, which is ultimately, better for people. It breaks my heart to see, we were talking about this CARES Act money that I told you about earlier. And just the food bank here in town alone has had to start buying $1.5 million worth of food every month just to try and feed people in Lee County, because people are hurting that bad. And, I didn't want Lee County, nobody wants Lee County to be in that position. So we want to get people back to work as soon as possible, get them earning money again and supporting themselves again as soon as possible.
Well, I think that's all the questions I have at this moment. Does anybody, I know we still have a good crowd online. Does anybody have any questions? We scheduled to go till 1, but we could always let the commissioner and everybody get back to work. But does anybody have any questions? Well, Commissioner, thank you very much for joining us today and chatting with us. It's been really nice. Great to work with you. Wait a minute, let me see. Oh, never mind. That was my staff telling me to talk about next week. So,
well, good deal. Well, listen, I'll leave you with this. We are a resilient county. We have bounced back from bad things before. We'll bounce back from this. It's a horrible time right now for a lot of people out there who have lost their jobs, and unfortunately for some families who've lost loved ones through this. And we just pray that we will begin to heal that the numbers will continue to trend in the right direction and that we can get Lee County back to work as soon as possible. You know, we were off to a record-breaking start in 2020, and I pray that we can get people back to work and earning money and supporting their families as soon as possible, and we will bounce back from this. I believe it.
Yes, well, thank you. You and the commissioners, your leadership has been great on this. And before I let you go, let's see, next week is our next events, the noons on the 26th. That is going to be, no, the 20th, excuse me, the 20th. That's just going to be a Lee BIA member orientation. We have new members that have signed up, but it's really for anybody that's a member that would like to get on and talk about the benefits of the association and what we do. And we are still trying to recruit members. So anybody on here that knows anybody that needs to join, I mean, if you see what the Florida Home Builder Association and what the Lee BIA and National have done to ensure that this industry has maintained essential status and has been able to move forward, anybody that's in the industry should be a member of this association. So we urge you to join. It's going to be same time, noon, next Wednesday. So spread the word, and we hope to see everybody. And Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll let everybody go. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.